Welcome to the Master of Business information session. I'm Jesse Olson. I'm the academic program director of this program and a senior lecturer of management. Also with me, supporting me, and you'll see him later, is Jerome Otten, who is a student recruitment officer. And we have a few subject coordinators here to speak about their subjects, and I'll introduce them later on in the session. But before we get into our content for today, well, I'll thank you for attending, and I'll also note that this will be recorded and posted to our website, so you'll be able to see that. But in Australia, and I know many of you may be joining us from outside of Australia, we recognize that this country is actually comprised of many countries that are tens of thousands years old. And we acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, and where we are on the Parkville campus and at the University of Melbourne, we acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and we pay our respects to their elders, past and present, as well as to any First Nations peoples who might be in attendance today. So today we're going to talk about some basics and the aims of the program, as well as the course structure. And that's where we'll also invite our subject coordinators to talk about their subjects a little bit. And then we'll talk about the key dates for 2025, so you can get an idea of the timeline of the program. We'll talk about entry requirements, how to apply, and then there will be time at the end for Q&A. So the key features of this program, the basics. This is 100% online, and it's a 150-point program. It's designed for those looking to upskill their management capabilities with or without an existing business background, and we'll say a little bit more about that later. It provides the broad foundations in business and economics and practical understanding of the core functional and operational areas of business. The program is aiming to equip managers from various backgrounds and industries, and it's designed for students to learn about concepts around adaptive and strategic leadership, talent and team management, influencing and engaging stakeholders, complex decision-making in a digitized world, customer service excellence and developing customer-centric cultures, managing sustainability for value, strategy at the front line, effective resource management, and high performance and lean operations. So a variety of concepts and topics around business, including very foundational topics as well as very contemporary and more complex topics. So let's have a look at our course structure. Again, this is all on the website, and you can access that through the QR code there. And you can even look at the subjects in a little bit more detail by going to our website, and we will have some subject coordinators talk about a few of these subjects. But the structure of this is essentially that we have a series of foundation subjects. These 6 subjects, that is accounting, analysis and decisions, empirical methods for business, economics of markets and organizations, business analytics for decision-making, managerial finance, and value creation strategies. These 6 subjects comprise our foundation subjects, and you would choose 4 of those. So it is our view that you can sort of customize your education, your business education, in the way that you think is most useful to your future, even from our foundation subjects. And then we have our discipline core subjects, which get into a bit more sort of complex, I guess, topics and contemporary topics, as well as soft skills. So we're talking about adaptive leadership, managing teams, effective stakeholder engagement, artificial intelligence in organizations, talent management, customer experience leadership, managing sustainability for strategic advantage. And then after you choose 6 of those subjects and complete those, we have the capstone subjects. And you would need to complete both of those, and this really kind of finishes off your your studies in the program, Strategy at the Front Line and Managing Resources for High Performance, where you're integrating a lot of the learning that you've done earlier in the program to complete these capstones. So what we'll do next is I would like to ask, we have 4 of our subject coordinators in attendance here today, so I'd like to ask them to talk a little bit about subjects that they lead in this program. And we'll just go, and we're going in alphabetical order, but let's start with Dr. Belinda Allen, please.
Hi, everyone. So I'm fortunate enough to teach 3 of the subjects in this course. So I teach 2 of the discipline core subjects, adaptive leadership and managing teams. And then I teach one of the capstone subjects, so managing resources for high performance. And I think I'll just sort of speak generally about sort of what we do in the subjects, but we certainly take a very applied focus. And so, for example, in adaptive leadership, we start off by talking about your own personal effectiveness, this idea that kind of if we're going to be leading others, we first of all need to sort of understand ourselves a little bit more. So one of the things throughout the subjects is it's about not only, I guess, increasing your knowledge about topic areas, but also increasing your understanding of yourself as a leader. So that's really something that we emphasize, and certainly the way we have the created online activities and also the assessment tasks really takes that very applied focus. And so I think the other thing that I would sort of say, because I know sometimes, you know, the thought of possibly studying a wholly online course might be a little bit nerve-wracking, is that throughout certainly the subjects that I teach, and I know it's the same throughout the course, we emphasize really interacting with the other people that are undertaking the course. So for example, in the managing teams subject that I take, one of the things that we look at there is how to communicate effectively with your team that you might be managing or leading. And so we have lots of kind of activities where you're actually kind of trying that out, as it were, online and testing out some of the kind of communication techniques that we talk about as part of that subject. And then in the capstone subject that I teach, obviously that comes right at the end of the course. That's really about, I guess, providing you with an opportunity to integrate all of the different things that you've looked at throughout the various subjects that you've chosen to do during the course. And so the kind of final piece of assessment that we ask you to undertake is about really applying what you've learned to, if you like, try and solve an organizational problem of your choosing. So again, it's that really applied focus that I think we've tried to weave throughout the course that, you know, might also differentiate it possibly from other courses that you've undertaken. So that's a little bit about the subjects that I take.
Great. Thank you very much, Belinda. And we'll have time for a Q&A at the end. If you have questions about the program or about these subjects, you're welcome to ask those questions. Next, we'd like to hear from Associate Professor McCall Carrington about your subject, please.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, because I love talking about my subject. And the subject that I co-teach is artificial intelligence in organizations. And so, as you can imagine, it is highly topical and a really exciting subject to be part of and to teach. And so what we do is we start by really demystifying what an artificial intelligence system actually is. So we open up that black box because we understand that a lot of people coming into our course have heard about AI. In fact, we all use AI in a kind of on a daily basis, you know, whether it's checking the weather as you get up in the morning or putting on Google Maps in the car as you're driving to work. We're all using AI constantly. But when it comes to how does this system actually work, often it is quite unknown. So we start by opening up that black box and really showing and demystifying, really in a way, there's very, very simple processes of what is artificial intelligence, how an AI system actually works, the processes, but also the structure behind it. And then we move from looking at the systems themselves to then looking at more a managerial approach and strategic decision-making approach. So how do we make investment decisions and use decisions of artificial intelligence that will actually create value for the organisation that we're in? So we might look at those kind of managerial decision-making points, because not all AI is actually going to create value for your organisation. Some forms of AI may actually destroy value for your organisation. So we look at that more strategic area of, is this a threat or is it an opportunity, and how do I choose and make those really, I guess, investments that will pay off for the organisation in the long term. From there, we also look at the ethics of the use of AI and responsible AI, which again is highly topical and really, really evolving as a field. And then we move into the more management science end of artificial intelligence, and just picking up on what Belinda was saying before about application. And so this is where we really apply, learn and apply, I guess quite sophisticated decision-making models. We also start to build and understand new generation analytics. For example, applying machine learning techniques to a business problem. So we really get our cohort at this point in time to build that management science capability around data, analytics, visualization of data, to help you make better decisions within the organisation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Micol. And now I'd like to invite Dr. Beck Rees to please talk about your subjects.
Thanks so much, Jessie. I'm like Micol, I get so excited about talking about mine as well. So I know we've only got 2 minutes, but I'll try and keep it as short as I can, because these are really cool subjects. I take 2 of them. One of them is effective stakeholder engagement, and then the other one is strategy on the front line. So the first one, which is effective stakeholder engagement, it's kind of looking more towards the psychology of behind the scenes of how do we really engage effectively with people in the workplace, both internal and external stakeholders. We're looking at kind of, the role and the power relationships behind, stakeholders. We're looking at communication and influence and what kind of strategies we can sort of learn to adopt. And one of the fun topics comes up is when we talk about conflict, and then how do we manage those difficult stakeholder relationships. That's always a fun one. And then we round off with kind of going, how do we build something that will be sustainable, that is going to be something where we can all join forces and achieve that, utopian win-win of, shared value. So that's the first subject. The second one is more of the capstone subject, where we're kind of bringing it all together. And that one is where it's the strategy on the front line, where we're recognizing how important the frontline managers are, and we're saying, okay, how do we get some, common strategies or some drivers of how we can achieve, better organizational performance. And it's a really practical one where we're getting the tools and the theories, and then working out, what's going on in your business and how do we actually get that application there. And one of the cool things about this subject is we have these live webinar sessions, and because we've got such a diverse cohort, we get to see the same one tool applied in a wide variety of different industry, types. And we get to discuss those differences and learn, what are some ways that other people have found that this could work in a specific way in their industry? And are there other learning applications of how you could make that work in yours? And so we get some really, really rich discussions in some of those webinars. And then at the end, you come out with a strategic plan, which you've built from all of the courses that you've done, and then everything in this subject, to building a really robust strategic plan of how you could move forward in your own workplace. So really, really cool and exciting stuff.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Beck. And last, we have Dr. Ji-Yeon Son in the studio, and we'd like you to share about your subject. And I understand we have a little bit of visual aid here. Yep. So we'll go here.
Thanks, Jessie. My name is Ji-Yeon Son. I'm a senior lecturer at the Department of Management and Marketing. And I co-teach this subject with Michelle, who's a professor at the same department. So I'd like to introduce the teaching team a little bit. So I've had PhD in HR, at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, and Michelle had her PhD in HR at the University of Wisconsin Madison. And as a teaching team, we've been teaching this subject, and we've been enjoying teaching this subject as well. And these are the, excuse me, learning outcomes that we help you to learn after you finish this subject. So you're going to learn theories and concepts about talent management and what are the organizational or contextual factors that affect how to effectively manage talented individuals. You can find more information about the learning outcomes in the webpage of the subject. And then the next one is the course structure. So we basically have 8 weeks of different subject, different topics regarding talent management. So I oversee week 1 to week 5 and week 8 topics, and Michelle will be overseeing week 6 and 7. And we have 4 live webinars. Actually, one is going on this evening with Michelle. I think it starts at 7. So first one is just introductory one, that we introduce ourselves, break some ice, and we introduce the subjects, we know each other. And then the next one is with me, the live webinar. After you guys finish the topics that I'm covering, then we'll do Q&A, live Q&A sessions and a little bit of discussions about the topics. And then the next one will be with Michelle after you guys finish week 6 and 7 materials. And then the last one is regarding final exam Q&A. So as you can see from the structure, we have 3 different assignments. First one is just class participation, live webinar participation, and you have 8 weeks of 8 times of short case analysis for each week. And then the last one is 3-day take-home exam with a given case. Okay, so that's the structure. And I think that's about it.
Okay, and if we have questions, we'll come back to you
Yeah.
at the end. So
All
thank
right.
you,
Thank
Ju.
you.
And that was a nice illustration of kind of the structure of one of our subjects in terms of the mix of webinars and online kind of modules and things like that. And that will vary to some extent from subject to subject, but we will experience this kind of mix of webinars with work through modules on your own, with discussion board work and these assessment pieces. And again, you can look at these different subjects online to have a better idea of how each one might be structured. So now, speaking of how the subjects kind of progress through the terms, at University of Melbourne, we do have 4 online terms, and terms 1 and 3 are when we're conducting our intake. So when you apply, you're applying to enter at either term 1 or at term 3. But you can see there's a progression of about 8 weeks of learning. If we look at term 1, for example, we have applications closing for that on the 3rd of January, but we have a pre-teaching period where you get to start getting familiar with some of the subject's material that lasts for about a week. And then you have the teaching period from the 27th of January to the 23rd of March. And then you have your exam period after that. So this is term 1, and then you enter term 2 and terms 3 and 4 and so on. Now, again, I want to stress that this calendar shows you some applications closing dates, but the term 1 and term 3 dates are what we need to pay attention to, because this particular course has intakes at those 2 points in time. You can take a look at this calendar online through that QR code there, but make sure that you scroll down and click on the 2025 key dates, because the 2024 will still be what shows up automatically. I think you can even also start to look at 2026, because if you enter the program in either term 1 or term 3, it's likely that you're going to be continuing with us through at least part of 2026 to complete your course. So let's talk about the entry requirements. I know these are also listed online, but I'd like to say a little bit more about this. So I guess kind of the main entry requirement is that you have a prior undergraduate degree or equivalent. And there are several ways or several different forms of that listed there. I think probably the most common one that we'll see is that if you have a bachelor's degree or equivalent in a similar discipline. Now, I put a little asterisk on similar because similarity of disciplines is determined by me as academic program director and by the associate dean of teaching and learning here at our faculty. And we are taking a very broad view of what similar means for a bachelor's degree for this program. So even if you haven't gotten a bachelor's degree in business, maybe some other field, and you're kind of wondering, is this similar enough? Go ahead and give us an application, because we are looking to interpret this quite broadly. And as we'll discuss later, there are other pathways into our program, even if you don't quite meet these requirements. And we're happy to take your application and give you a recommendation for those other pathways if they apply. But we can see there are other kind of forms of prior undergraduate degree programs there, 3-year undergrad qualification and some maybe graduate studies, or an honors degree at a bachelor's level, or a bachelor's degree and some work experience, or just 6 years of documented relevant work experience might count as equivalent to a bachelor's degree. So encourage you to think about that, but also to recognize that we will be interpreting this quite broadly, and that we're happy to give you advice if you don't quite meet this. We want you to succeed, and we have various programs, and there's probably something that is a good fit for you. We do require a 65 weighted average mark, or WAM, or at least the University of Melbourne equivalent from any prior coursework. But again, give us your application. Let's think about this and whether there might be other pathways, because there are pathways for those who don't quite meet that WAM requirement. Of course, all of our subjects are conducted in English, so we do have an English language requirement, as is the case across the University of Melbourne programs. So if you have a recognized previous study taught and assessed entirely in English, so for example, you were educated in Australia, that kind of English language requirement would be normally satisfied. Or if you have an approved English language test, if you're from a non-English speaking background, the required standard of English for this degree is one of the below on this slide, one of the below test scores. I think we probably see IELTS the most. Yeah, probably IELTS is the most common, but we do have these others there available. I'm looking over to Jerome because he's the pro. You'll get to see him shortly about admissions. So here's the pathway I keep talking about. This is like the main pathway that I'm referring to. So and this is also on the website. There's actually a separate website for the graduate certificate in business. But this is a pathway into our program if, for example, you're not assessed as meeting the WAM equivalent requirement for entry, you don't quite have the 65 WAM, well, we may offer you a place in our graduate certificate in business program, which is a very related program. And if you successfully complete that program with a minimum average WAM of 65 and you don't fail any of those subjects, then you'll have a guaranteed pathway into the Master of Business, and you'll get advanced standing for subjects completed in the graduate certificate in business. I want to show you something really quickly, because as is written on the slide on the right side, there's 4 online subjects that you do for the graduate certificate, but I want to back up a little bit and show you something. So you see those foundation subjects there, you choose 4 for our program. Well, that's essentially the graduate certificate in business. So if you don't quite meet our requirements, you can go get a head start in the graduate certificate of business. You take 4 of these foundation subjects, essentially, which are the graduate certificate in business subjects. You do well in those, you pass them all, then you come into our program and you're finished with those. So then you continue on with the discipline core, the capstone subject. So it's a very so it's a very kind of plausible pathway that that lets you make use of all of the experiences and the subjects that you're taking with us, and gives you this full this advanced standing into our program. So I encourage you to send us an application, even if you think you're kind of on the borderline, because we may offer this as an option for you if you're not quite meeting the Master of Business requirements. And ultimately, you would be able to get into the program and take this degree as well. Okay, so how do you apply? Well, you visit our website. Maybe you've seen this. You review the requirements and program information, and you follow the link there. This is a website that I've put up a couple times already, but there it is again. And if you miss it, we've got the recording that'll come out. You can grab that. But take a look at that. Go over that. There's a little bit more detail about the subjects and things like that if you're interested in looking at that a little bit more. You're going to complete the online application form using the course code MCBUS. You submit a record of your undergraduate grades and grades for any further study after that. And you may apply if you're awaiting final results, as conditional offers can be given. You will also be asked to submit a statement of intent, which is up to 500 words about your personal motivation. This can include details of your personal circumstances as well as your life and work experiences. It should emphasize any aspect of your personal history that may enhance your application, including extracurricular activity, community involvement, work experience, relevant personal characteristics, and any outstanding achievements. Now, that would be a lot to talk about in 500 words. So you're going to have to kind of drill down into what's kind of essential and relevant to this application and submit those 500 words. And then you'll also be asked to supply original or certified copies of all qualifications. So just be mindful of the application deadlines there. So for our January start, then you need to make sure your application's in by the 3rd of January. And then our summer term will begin. That's with the pre-teaching period on the 20th of January. And then if you want to wait a little bit and see, or you need to delay your start a little bit, think about the mid-year intake, and those applications close on the 23rd of June, and your mid-year intake study period will begin with that pre-teaching period on the 14th of July. So now we're at the end of our kind of prepared spiel, I guess. And so now we can enter our Q&A session. I'd like to invite Jerome up, Jerome Otten from our student recruitment office.
Thanks, Jesse.
Yeah, thanks. Welcome.
Thank you.
And thanks for joining us.
No problem.
Now, first of all, did I mess anything up?
No, it was fantastic, Jesse. You got everything spot on.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
All right. So I will finish this with a passing score, apparently. That's good.
And
All right.
admissions, there's no need for, as you mentioned, through the application portal, and we've got an admissions team that can assess all the relevant documents. And if anything is missing, then they'll just correspond and let the applicants know. So there's no need to be too overly concerned if I got everything right. As you mentioned, copies of transcripts, the statement of intent. Yeah.
So just try to look at those deadlines and get
Correct.
everything that you have, try to get it in by
Yeah,
then.
correct.
Yeah, right. Do we have any questions coming through?
It's probably not surprising. Can I, given the probably cohort you're probably expecting for this program, can I work full time while doing the course?
Yes, I think we have people do that. And you can pace your studies accordingly. So, I mean, whereas we might expect a lot of students to want to kind of take 2 subjects per term and maybe finish up in a year and a half or so, if you're really dedicated and conscientious, you might take 1 subject a term, at least some terms, and while you're working. So most of the subject work is done in an asynchronous way, so done on your own, going through the modules. So that shouldn't be a problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
With the course being fully online, will there be any group work / networking opportunities?
Maybe we can ask if our subject coordinators want to speak to that about group work and networking activities. Do we have anybody want to talk about that?
I'm happy to chime in. I can only speak for the subjects that I are involved in, but there's no group work in the subjects that I run. But there's plenty of networking opportunities. So both in terms of the online discussions that we have and also the webinars. And indeed, I know that students often say that being an online course, they're a little bit positively surprised about exactly how much interaction and networking is available to them, because they possibly thought, oh, being online, maybe, you know, I won't really know who else is in my course, when in fact that's not the case. So in my subject, no to the group work, yes to the networking.
Great, thank you. Any other comments?
I would just like to literally mimic what you've just said, in that a lot of the feedback I've got is that people didn't want the being boxed into a group assignment, but they wanted that networking opportunity. And it's the perfect blend of both, because they get to do what they want when they want in the time that they've got, but then they come to the webinars and we really do a lot of group activity discussion. So they get to meet people. There's huge amounts of sort of discussion that goes on. So they do feel that they walk away from the subject with having networked, having made, you know, new contacts, but it's not the, you know, the taxing side of it, of being locked into group assignments and then having to work around those sort of deadlines. So it's the win-win of both. I've had that feedback a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, and look, I can only absolutely mirror and reflect what Beck and Belinda have said. So in our subject, we don't do group work. We find that the students want to work synchronously in their own time, fitted into their busy work lives. But at the same time, they do want to have those networking options. And that's actually a real, I guess, benefit of the way we do teach our subjects and we do approach this course, is that every subject will have that ability to interact with each other during the webinars, but also online in an asynchronous way as well.
Okay, thanks. And yeah, you can.
Yeah, I can add something too. For my subject, similar to others, we don't have group assignment, but we have discussions, ongoing discussions, and you can see what other people are thinking. And then if you join the live webinar, you can have a discussion and you can build the network. Of course, it depends on the cohorts. And I'd like to add one thing for the first question. So we have full-time working students. So we schedule, for example, live webinars after 7, so they can participate. So
thanks for that.
It's completely available.
Awesome. Yeah. Now I will say for our foundation subjects, because we have subject coordinators here speaking about our discipline subjects and our capstone subjects, the foundation subjects are likely to have group assignments. So just be aware of that. So there will be, it won't be the same across every subject, and there will be, you know, we do like subject coordinators to kind of run subjects the way that they think that their content is best communicated. But you can hear from, you know, that there is some variation to that. Thanks. Do we have any other questions?
Only one from me. I don't want to put you on the spot. Is that okay?
You should put me on the spot.
So a question we often get with some of our other programs, and obviously looking at your entry requirements, where the student might not necessarily have come from a Bachelor of Commerce or a Bachelor of Business background, maybe a Bachelor of Arts with some business electives. You feel confident that and the subjects looking at it would provide the foundational skills to then pivot into a business career, I guess? Yes.
So that is the intention of this degree, and you know, to include individuals like that who might not have, they don't have this business background, but they do want to make a pivot, or they need to incorporate, you know, they're going into a management kind of position in maybe an arts organization or something like this. I think this will be a great course to take on. Again, it's foundations, and then it touches on a lot of kind of more complex and contemporary topics. I think, go give us your application. I'd be interested. And I think that would make an interesting cohort too. I can see our subject coordinators nodding. So please do. Yeah, that's a good question.
Great.
Yeah.
That's it for questions.
That's all the questions. So if you do have questions that come up later, we have this, you can contact us through the website, or if you're watching this on recording, of course, you can't live send us your questions live, but please do visit our webpage, send us your questions, let us know, or your concerns. But we really hope to see your application. We really appreciate your coming here and joining us for this session, this information session, and we hope to see you maybe next year. So thanks a lot.
Sorry, there is one.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
it's a specific entry requirement question.
Okay.
So it's a Chinese university, but a non-985, which I think is their tiers.
Okay.
So, but an 87 in Bachelor of Economics, but have 3 years with the 3 years work experience in relevant areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would obviously.
It sounds right. I mean, we'd want to see it on paper. I would like to see the application. Yeah, it sounds promising.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, submit an application.
I can't issue an
Sure.
admissions decision right now, but we would like to see the application. It does sound promising.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Thanks. Are there any more last minute ones? I'm happy to take those.
No.
No?
That was it.
okay.
Yep.
Well, we'll close it off. Thank you all. Thanks to all of our participants on stage and on Zoom too, our subject coordinators. Yeah, we'll hope to see you next year.